Hey, greetings everybody, and welcome to our first team building video in a little while. I heard recently that one of my more recent videos, apparently the microphone was too low. I'm trying not to shout into my microphone because I don't want to kill my neighbors, but also there was a Windows update, and Windows Update always screws up my recording settings. Thanks, Microsoft. So today we're going to be taking a look at just a bunch of different characters, some of the most recent characters. I don't want to talk about certain characters like Joom and Ashen Mont too much because I don't think they're incredibly relevant to what has changed. They're just still really solid characters and really solid with a bunch of different characters. But Pigeon, who is one of the major sources of information, and not the only one for this video, because I've also been watching some Guild Wars streams that have been popping up. I've been watching also just some other content, and Cipher is the first character that I want to say is actually really, really good, and I have like him more now than I used to at the start of the week. And the big reason for why I like Cipher so much is because he is actually a glue unit. He is a unit that holds together a bunch of teams much, much better. And I want to talk about this in terms of two recent units, like Shawls 2 or Luciel. I mean, I call her Shawls 2 just because it's funny, but Luciel, who is our thunder-based healer, as a 100 cost, I think is just a much, much worse investment as opposed to Cipher. Because Cipher brings a lot of healing down on AoEs and is capable of attacks that are supporting a bunch of different of the strongest characters. And I want to highlight just part of the evidence for this, which is coming from Pigeon's video. And I'm not going to show you all of Pigeon's matches. I've advertised enough for Pigeon's channel on this channel, like, before now. But I do want to just highlight this, that when Pigeon was doing his test video this week, because he also did a shorter test video about limited cost stuff, and limited cost stuff with Cipher looks really, really good. Like, really, really good. These were the teams that he ended up testing over an hour. And as you can see, the combination of different characters across the board is quite varied here. Cipher in the bottom left corner is more of an evasion style character, if you can believe it. In the top left, a lot of sustain, DPS, and also just with Luciel, capable of like reducing the other team's healing power, but potentially having a bunch of healing power here. And top right, just some of the strongest characters in the game. Bottom right, a group that you may not think is actually that good, but all three of these groups performed decently well into a wide matchup spread. And again, just skipping ahead, the wide matchup spread that they were playing against was all of this, which includes all great swords, which includes just the three of the most powerful characters previous to, some of the more recent updates. Great weird combinations you don't think would necessarily be that strong. Ice and earth, mono fire, mono earth kind of thing. It's an interesting bout, and this is the thing that basically points Cipher as to being a really good character most of the time in a lot of different matchups. And that's a lot of consistency, and one of the things I truly, truly like about it. But let me skip over for a little bit and switch gears and talk about Luciel 2 for a second, because this is a character that has appeared a lot of places on JP recently. He is in a ton of like matches in arena and whatnot. And the best thing that I still think about her is stall. So like when I see her, I just feel a little bit less confident in terms of winning, because if it comes down to her with two strong DPSs, if two DPSs cancel each out other on the same team, Luciel can just kind of cheat her way to the end of the match because of the turn time limit, which I absolutely despise. I'm gonna come right out and say it. I don't like this character. If with the current time limit, the time limit of 50 turns was set back a while ago when I think, you know, the game was different from what it is now, and now I think this is just ridiculous. Probably the time limit needs to be adjusted, but not not like a consistent enough problem to really make that an issue. So Luciel 2 is a character. Charles 2. Luciel is a character that has proven her worth, but while I think that most people think that she's a character that can be put into a lot of different teams, I think that is only true for most of the time when you are doing just normal stuff, non-cost limit. I think that she is absolutely a terrible cost limited character. Her DPS is never quite good enough. She doesn't pair well enough with other DPSs for her DPS to be good enough. And if you have two really good DPSs on the other team with a stall unit in the low cost, it's particularly really not good enough. So yeah, Luciel is a character that I want to just evaluate right now in terms of team building. As a team building score, she's great. She can fit into just basically any team because she's just a powerful healer, and she can stall out with disable and her healing to basically shut down opponents' teams. He doesn't necessarily help you win your teams, though. As a limited cost character, I think that she's really, really bad. I think you want to go DPS most of the time, and with Cipher around, Cipher doesn't shut her, or Cipher shuts her down much, much easier than Sephiroth ever could, and that's enough of a reason to devaluate her, in my opinion, even though, you know, overall, her overall score to me is still like A-, but with the way that things are going and how the game has already put out new characters against her, I feel that she's going to be, in terms of a longevity score, she's going to be maybe B at best, because she melts when she goes up against a mage. Mages will absolutely crush her, as most of the time I see, like, in matchups with Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh dies early enough that she's generally pretty safe, but if Gilgamesh survives and it's one-on-one, Gilgamesh will just absolutely annihilate her, which is very relevant to the conversation about how good she is. So yeah, this character is one that I put as such. Going back to Cipher, though, I think that Cipher is probably an A character to me. I don't think that he is bad by any standard. I think he's actually really quite good. I think he's also incredibly deceptively solid, as opposed to Squall, which felt weak when he came out. This guy has really generally strong enough attacks to get by. He has enough utility and versatility in his kit, and he pairs well with just a ton of different units, and surprise, surprise, he can kind of be a surprise evade unit. You don't have to build him that way, but you definitely can, and it kind of actually works, strangely enough. So that can be something that people are potentially looking for. I think this character, as opposed to Luciel, I put this character as maybe more of an A-, mainly because I don't see Mono Dark ever being completely competitive, and it would require another character, which I'm just not confident, because next for JP, I guess given the release schedule, should be summer units, which could be a dark summer unit, but again, I don't really want to put too much stock into that because I can't imagine it, at least for Cipher is totally solid, totally great, amazing on a really quite good on a bunch of different teams because, again, it's the thing I want to highlight is just that as opposed to Sephiroth's one-off healing down was good enough at the start, but now that there's even more healing out there, and it seems like a lot of the time he doesn't get off AoEs, it's not good enough anymore. But since this character can kind of do that healing quite a bit, and healing down quite a bit, I think that it's just generally a little bit more reliable than Sephiroth, given some of the newer units. And all of this has muddied the waters as to what teams are essentially good out there. Like even teams with Cipher and I think it was Cipher and Ashen Mont, I've seen lose to just mono Earth because ranged actually on a good map can actually still get work done. Yeah, it's curious, right? Because doing this essential team building video, I do want to highlight the variety that has essentially kind of exploded onto JP, where you have just a bunch of different teams with a bunch of different setups, and they're kind of just working in different ways. Like I think that out of all of these 4 teams, the one I like the performance the most overall was Cloud, Cipher, and Luciel 2 because it was pretty strong in most of its matchups, winning most of its matchups from what I remember. But there's also just good synergy with the VCs that are coming along here, and multi-element is actually quite a bunch of places, but mono-element's still putting up more of a fight than you would think. Yeah, so Cipher, I think overall I put him just generally at an A- now. I know it kind of feels like I'm coming down as Luciel 2 hater, but that's not the case. I think that Luciel 2 is just probably... I can see more mages coming in the future and that being a really big problem for her, since it feels like a lot of DPS is just so honed in on slash and not the other types, which could find weaknesses and holes in these teams where they're not running enough resistances and against specific attack types. We'll keep an eye on it, sort of thing. As for a few other characters, just because I've given Sephiroth a little bit of maybe a humbling, saying that I kind of like Cipher's healing down more than Sephiroth. Sephiroth is still essentially a character that you kind of should run because having Curse is still stronger than not having Curse. It's just that I think that where a lot of people expected this to be, you know, the be-all and end-all with JP, it's kind of a zero-sum game where most every team is running Sephiroth still, and it's still working. There's no reason not to change that. But yeah, Sephiroth I still put maybe as A-. Gilgamesh I still feel is just an overall solid A. And yeah, Mont and June are also still up there for A's because yeah, they're still bringing all 3 of the final characters I talked about, Gilgamesh, Ashen Mont, and Spring June, are still really pushing their own mono element quite hard, enough to be good against rainbow teams overall. But yeah, the amount of team building that you can potentially get now is quite interesting, and I feel like for the last few weeks where it's been stagnating a little bit, this is kind of a little bit of a breath of fresh air. And if you want, like if you skip Sephiroth and you're looking for something to potentially kind of the glue that can put together a lot of different teams, Cipher might be it. Because for instance, if you already have Ashen Mont and Spring June, which is something I expect that quite a few globals have, Cipher fits in there because you can just go all slashing base. Or potentially, if you're going to go Gilgamesh, Ashen Mont, and Cipher, those are the 3 sword groups, which there are some BCs that actually that quite nicely. and have more synergy than just the hodgepodge that you see. Anyway, so that is my opinions and a little bit about team building this week. Hopefully it gives you some ideas as to what you could build towards in the future, whether you want evasion, earth, Cipher, or just generally strong Cipher. Cipher's a character that I don't want people to overlook, though, and that's maybe the point of this week's video the most. Besides highlighting variety that has started to come back to JP. And as for Squall, I mean, if we skip ahead, I want to say this one. This one right here. Is this the one where we have Squall? No, that's that. Because let's just take into account Squall for a second. So here we got a team, pretty dang strong team, right? And just so we're not just highlighting the back of all the video, what does the other team look like? Pretty dead. Yeah, I don't think the other team's gonna get there. Well, it's okay. We can check this video, right? Okay, so maybe, like, as you can see, Squall, with all of his upgrades and everything, has gotten, you know, better at dealing damage and everything, and might actually find some spots. So, you know, don't give up complete hope yet. But yeah, it's a little bit wider than you actually might think. And anyway, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Take care and see you later.